Hi, everyone. Welcome back into Prime Time. It's a great day in this neighborhood, that's for sure. It is our anniversary today.
How about that?
Officially. So, happy anniversary, my love.
Same to you, my dear.
Thank you. 19 years. How exciting is that? Well, I'm one of your hosts, Barbara Marville-Kelly, and with me is my partner, my husband, my best friend, and my love forever and ever, Dennis Kelly.
Oh, how about that?
And not only are you a martial arts champion, but you're a champion in life.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, I just kind of came up with that just before we opened the show today because I thought, you know, everybody calls you champ, they call you doc around here in the studio. There's a lot of reasons for that. And I think that over many years of time where I've observed your lifestyle, our lifestyle, and different messages that you impart on a daily basis.
Well, you have to have many faces if you want to really get along in this world. You can't just have one face. You got to have multiple things that you can do to make people feel good about you, because whenever they're around you, you make them feel good.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's a success a person can achieve when it comes to things like love and attraction and so on is basically when somebody walks away from your presence, that they feel better about themselves since they were talking to you.
I knew you were going to go there because that's something that we always talk about. Do you ever go anywhere, whether it's a party or a special event, maybe networking, and you walk into a room or somebody else walks into a room and you can notice that there may or may not be a connection? And I think that that's partly of what you're talking about, because I know that when I'm around you, I always feel better just because of the vibes that you put off, your frequency, and your love. And that's actually what we're going to be talking about today, is the love connection, the power of love. And that's what's really kept us together. But I have to tell you, it hasn't been a whole bowl of cherries. Believe me, there's been times when both of us have felt like we were in the pits. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. There isn't any perfect world.
Right.
But perfection is a direction. It can never be a goal.
I love it when you say that, because there is something so truthful about that. And, you know, we've talked about, you know, how to be a 10, how to find a 10. Remember the movie with Bo Derek, you know, the perfect 10? And that may be like a direction, like you're talking about, is how to be a 10, you know? It's not about all this and, you know, the clothes, the makeup, the hair, and all that, although it helps. Self-image, right?
Yeah, of course
right?
It does.
Yeah. I mean, that's what sort of attracted me to you when I marched into the health club up in Newport Richey. And there you were, as big as life, the director of the health club.
That was a moment we'll never forget, will we?
I know. And that was really interesting because at that time, and I was working at the Home Shopping Network, and my health felt like it was being compromised and challenged because I was working the early morning shows because we had such a great following. It was like one big happy family. But I was starting to drag a little bit. And I knew that I had to get back into the gym. And so that's where my husband and I originally met, although I believe you said that you had known of me at HSN because you were one of Tony Little's models at
Right.
that time.
Well, I saw you there.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know you then.
Uh-huh.
And I said to Tony, I said, that's a beautiful host.
I didn't know all that.
And well, I saw you, and I thought you were attractive. Never did I ever realize that I'd run into you outside of the studio.
Wait a minute. Remember what you think about, you bring about?
Absolutely.
Oh, I bet I know what was going on in your mind
See,
back
I
then.
saw that. At that time, you were brunette. I saw this beautiful brunette in there, and I thought, wow, that'd be nice to know her.
But I don't ever remember seeing you there, ever. And I did a lot of Tony Little shows. Isn't that something? And then come to find out, you live close by. I mean, you could have lived in a different state altogether.
Right, right.
So that was interesting. How did you get a hook up with Tony, by the way?
It was a talent agency that I was a member of, and they get me, at the time I was doing modeling and so on, stuff for athletic equipment and stuff like that. So that's how I got together with Tony, because the modeling agency hooked us up, and he liked what I did, because I was one of the few men my age. At that time, I was in my mid-50s. I was one of the few men at my age that could do all the equipment.
Oh.
And he liked it that wouldn't wear out, because he could sell all the different equipment, and I could keep going on
going.
whatever it was.
On all his equipment.
Yeah, so he also mentioned, he mentioned who I was when I was doing the equipment, and he would say he's also world champion of martial arts.
But you were only 3-time back then, right? 3-time world martial arts champion, or 4?
That was 4.
4 at that time?
Yeah.
Ah, so you acquired 2 more since then.
Right.
Since we've been together, and I watched it all happen.
Well, actually 3 more, because remember the one at Orlando, so it's actually 3 more.
There you go. There you go. So we're going to talk about this whole love thing, and we're not here to promote anything other than love, and that's a big deal, right?
Yeah, I guess it is.
You are the best one to give such a definition or an explanation on this hormone, on how that's why I put it on Facebook. The power of love. That's not just a phrase. There's a lot of validation, especially from HeartMath Institute. They've done all the testing on love, right?
Right.
And why we have got to change this world, coming from everything we do from love, a state of love. It is a mindset, but more importantly, it's a heart set. And once we understand that, it becomes easier to do, right?
Absolutely. And the thing that people don't realize, that the heart has connection with the brain, because now they discovered about 30 years ago that there's crystallized cells in the heart that are in the same in the brain, and they communicate the two. Love actually does, realistically speaking, come from the heart, because the love is a projection. It's the highest vibration in the universe. Everything is vibration. Like when I look at you, what I see isn't really who you are in a sense, because that's when you were kids. You ever take a bucket and tie a rope to it and you swing it?
Oh,
and it looks like, like it's all solid all the way through. Well, we got these little electrons in our body. They're going 186,000 miles per second. They're going round and round and round, and as a result, what you see is just these electrons going at 186,000 miles per hour, per second.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
So are you telling me that I'm looking at you and that's not really what I'm seeing?
That's right.
Wow. I wonder what you look like then. What do you really look like? In other words, am I perceiving you to look this way, and if somebody else is looking at you?
No, there's other factors that are mitigating
Like what?
into that. Well, for example, what frequency you're vibrating at has a lot to do with it.
Well, what if I'm vibrating at a high frequency? Are you more handsome? And if I'm at a low frequency, you're not?
Well,
I'm really putting him in the spot today.
No, you're going to have to realize that when your frequency is there, other people will observe you as what you are. They'll feel something coming from you.
I see.
That's why it's always good to solve a problem not in the frequency that the problem was done. Mm-hmm. You try to solve a problem in the frequency. Just imagine now, have you got a line on a piece of paper, line this way, a horizontal line, and numbers going from 1 to 10 up, 1 to 10 down. The 1 to 10 up are the amount, 1 being the lowest of positive thinking, 10 being euphoria, the highest of positive thinking. Positive feeling, actually, is what we should say. And then the middle is neutral. So when you're in the middle, you're not feeling positive or negative, but the problem is if you're in neutral, you're easily persuaded into who's ever around you.
Oh, yes.
So if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Very true.
So that's why you have to protect those vibrations. Everything, like I say, people don't realize it. People in Asia, they have the conception, not that we're human matter, we're human energy. They look at us as energy beings. These are especially the ones involved in the martial arts that understand the true value of being a martial artist. Not buying a black belt or anything, but being able to hook up with the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. I call it God, but many people call it other things. And that vibration level that brings to you or repels things away from you.
You know, that makes a lot of sense, and we've talked about this on a lot of our shows, and the one reason why we wanted to talk about love today is to really get that message out. Because for many of you that have known us for a whole lot of years, you know, yes, we're a happy couple. We've been married 19 years. We've been together for 22, 23 years maybe. And you're probably wondering what some of our secrets are. And it really does come right back down, right to love, that love frequency. Because what we try to convey to people is that no matter what's happening in your world, in your life, whether it's crisis, whether it's sickness, whether it's financial turmoil, it doesn't matter. When you come from that higher frequency of love, and it's easy to do. It may not seem easy. I know when I was first learning from my husband to come from the heart instead of the head, it was a little bit difficult because I couldn't decipher, well, is it my heart talking, is it my head talking? I found out real fast because when I was making a decision on something, and I practice on little mundane things, if I would make a decision that I didn't know where it was coming from, and if it was from a head decision, it didn't turn out the way it could have had it been a heart decision. So now it's almost like we're on autopilot in making decisions and stepping back and not jumping into something without consulting our heart. Because to me and my husband, God is in our heart. And we pray, we do devotionals, and we know what we know, especially at this stage of our lives. And this is how we just want to continue on. I think the last show we did, it was, what's your 2020 vision for the year 2020? And I love that because it gives sort of that clear, crystal clear, picture that you can think of. Because when we have a crystal clear vision, it's easier to manifest that in a higher frequency. How'd that sound?
Sound very good.
I actually sounded like I was coming from the heart on that one, seriously.
Sound like you know what you're talking about.
I do know what I'm talking about. When we live it. We live it. I mean, when I say that our life hasn't been a bowl of cherries, for the most part, it really has been. We get along perfectly fine. We have our moments, but in those moments, one thing we learned from each other in the very beginning of our relationship, which we never fight. Right, really, we never really fight. But what you said, because when you were doing your singles and singles again, and how to acquire a 10, how to be a 10, you talked about if a couple's going to fight, fight nice.
Find out how they fight before you marry them.
Exactly.
And in other words, on purpose, to do something that they would get angry, but you better have a good excuse for that, and just find out how they fight.
I don't remember. Did you do that with me? I don't remember.
No. Oh, well, I did the test.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah. And you passed with high...
When was that? How long had we been dating that you did this little test with me?
I did, but you just forgot.
Was it about dancing?
No, we were dancing when this happened.
Oh,
but,
yeah?
Yeah.
Well, remind me. We got to share with the audience. What was the test that I passed? Come on!
No, I don't want to dissolve.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
I don't want to delve into something that's my secret weapon.
Oh, so you're still testing me? No, I know.
No.
I know you're. John's in my ear. He goes, "It's a guy thing." Shh. Well, I mean, this is open mic. You know, I was going to call this kind of like a fireside chat with the Kellys, but there's no fire, so I call it a sunny side chat because we're in sunny Florida. And we do. We live with the glass half full and not half empty, right?
The object has become the glass.
Yes. Exactly. Become the glass.
Right, you can control it. Sometimes there's a calling to be frequencies in the negative.
Yeah.
There's times that it's justified, like you want to, for example, if you're really not doing what you should be doing to do what you want to do, and in other words, just sitting there wishing about it, sometimes you need to get mad at yourself.
Oh, I do that. That gets me motivated
When I
sometimes.
say mad, give yourself a little kick in the butt.
Yeah, but not overthink it and not
Right.
overindulge in that. And have you ever felt like that? Like you get mad, darn, I did that, I shouldn't have done it that way. You just get mad at yourself. Does it motivate you? God, it motivates me.
Well, they call it segment intending. That's the language you use for this segment intending. For example, if you do a negative thing that affects somebody in a negative way, then when you go to bed at night, you go and go through the day and see what things you'd like to change, and then go about changing them. See yourself doing it the way it should be done. Seeing yourself, say you said something that really upset somebody, then when you go to bed, just before you go to sleep, just look at that situation and ask yourself, what should I have said that would have been better for the situation? And that way, when you go to sleep, chances when that happens again, you'll do the right thing. But if you don't do that, you're married to that thought.
And you'll do the same thing
You'll
over
do the same
and over.
thing over.
Yeah.
You're going to say, no, I won't do that again. Yes, you will do that again.
Yeah.
You've got to reconstruct that segment intending.
I like that. We've talked about that before.
Yeah, let me tell you something. The door is open in this world for all types of success for people that could do one most important fact: control your emotion.
Oh, thank you.
Give me a kid out of high school.
Amen.
Give me a kid out of high school that has that talent, and I'll show you somebody that's going to pit themselves against any college professor as far as income, as far as happiness, as far as physical fitness. They don't even get close. I have an uncle. He's passed away by now. I have an uncle. He had an IQ of 180. So he was a member of Mensa, and you couldn't even carry a conversation with this guy. He's way out in another world. He was miserable because he couldn't find a frequency because he's so stuck on being an intellectual. You know, I mean, it was like he was in another world.
So the average person out there, excuse me, walking around that doesn't know how to control their emotions, this can happen over time, and it can transfer from childhood, maybe your teenage years, maybe from something that has triggered an emotion. And we see a lot of that in some of the generations today where they really cannot handle they're hiding. They're hiding behind this. Oops, I just put my light on. Now I don't know how to turn. Stop laughing, John. You could come out here and turn this off for me. I don't know. Oh, there, wait a minute. Hang on. I did it, John. I turned it off. He's always making fun of me with this phone. But some of the generations today, because they hide behind the phone because they don't want to be judged in front of others. But yet they go on Facebook and they do this. Anyway, don't even get me started with that. And so I wonder what the frequency of the generations that will be coming down the pike after we have left the planet. Did you ever think about that? I wonder.
Well, there's a fork on the road that's going in fruition now. We're going to go one way or the other way because there's so many different ways. Now it's coming down to just a couple things. The key thing is wherever you go, you want to maintain the control of your emotions. There's something you can do in the mind and the heart that would do that, and it's not that difficult once you practice that over a period of time. There was a great book written by The High Performance Mind by Anna Weiss. She's a great person in the psychological world of mental fitness and emotional fitness. And she said a high performance mind is one that can and will reach that state of consciousness and desire at any given moment. So her meaning in saying that, or in pledging that in her book, was the fact that once you control the emotion, all sorts of good things happen. Because what happens one moment that thinks it's very bad, if you just hold on a little bit longer, good's going to come out of it. For example, I lost a fortune in a disco nightclub that I built, that I owned. And That was a tragic financially. But if it wasn't for that, I would have never met you because my world would have went in a different direction. But I went in the direction of controlling my emotions and being able to say, well, there must be some good that can come out of this, and looking for the good. And when you look, it's not like you're going seeking for it, you're just looking. For example, if I said to you right now, I said, how many blue cars did you see coming over here to the studio today? How many blue cars did you see?
I couldn't even tell you.
But if I said to you, I'll give you $100 for every blue car you can see on the way home.
Oh, I'll be counting them.
You'd be counting them.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it is the same thing.
Yeah, it's really, if you focus on the positive. And one thing that I try to get in my audiences when I do seminars, the thing that's so important to realize, that you can control your emotions a lot more than you think you can, replacing it with a good emotion.
Yes, yes.
You know, like if there's a dove on the, or a hawk on the fence, you want to change that into a dove. You can't change that hawk into a dove. You can replace it with a dove. It's the same thing. With the wow factor, basically was, and Dennis Waitley's put it in quite blunt form, said, when you have a goal and you get passionate about that goal and see it as already accomplished, 18 billion brain cells start vibrating at abnormal rates. Their brain cells that specifically are for the purpose of achieving that goal. Then all of a sudden out here in the universe, it starts following that vibration level. So when you vibrate at 18 billion cells are vibrating at an abnormal rate, then that thing that you're thinking about is drawn into a physical, in other words, a actual substance. In other words, thought brings things. Thought brings things, so it materializes. But the key thing, you have to believe that. The reason that people, they have that power, but they don't believe they have it. They don't believe it's there. And it's such a shame that power is there. That's the big wow factor.
You just triggered a lot of memories on taking me back over 20 years ago when I first met you. And this, you are witness of this. And when I met you, you know what I said? I don't know if I ever told you this.
What?
I said, I'm going to marry this man.
I don't remember if you did tell me that.
I said, I'm going to marry this man. I met your mom, and after we became an item and all that, I just knew I was going to end up marrying you very early on in our relationship. Isn't that interesting? And so here we are today, and I know that over all these years when you were competing, and I was going with you while you were competing, especially when you did that circuit the whole year, and I took all my tons of vacation time saved up. And when you're talking about that, what you're thinking about, and all of those cells vibrating at an abnormal rate, how many times did you and or we pick the color of your trophy? Have you heard this story before? If not, and if so, we're telling it again to you, but I love that story. We picked the colors. You picked the colors before, and I thought, no.
It happened almost every single time.
Yeah.
I believe that, well, first of all, there's not a single goal in my life, with the exception of one. There's not a single goal in my life that I haven't made. Every time I wanted to go, I followed the principles, the diagram. It's not that I was exceptionally talented. I'm average intelligence, and I don't have, from a scholastic standpoint, a good education. I educated myself over a period of years. So it wasn't that. So the key thing is, when you develop that ability to control those emotions, then you can focus all your attention to that goal that you want. Now, you don't have to be thinking about it all day long. You think about it 5-10 minutes a day is all you need once you establish that. And in that 5 or 10 minutes through deep meditation or sitting there relaxing, it doesn't matter. It works both ways. It's amazing what you can have. The only goal that I haven't made, I want to have a movie made of the story of my life, not because it's me, but because I want people out there to know. I don't care how bad your childhood is. I don't care what bad habits you have. You can overcome that. So what more powerful way to do that is a movie?
That's right. And that's right. And that is on our list, our 2020 vision, seeing it clearly with laser beam focus. And that's what our vision is for 2020, somehow, some way. And we're putting everything into the big pot of gold to see what kind of rainbows will come flying out of that, because we're always chasing rainbows day in and day out. And when we talk about some of these things, it's not that we're just picking them out of the sky or out of a book somewhere. We live this. We truly live this. And when I was a single mom, before I met you, I had to take a side job, and I was selling credit cards on inbound, outbound at the Home Shopping Network. And at that time, our whole operator pool was right there where the host was maybe 40 feet away. So I showed up at work, always dressed professionally with a blazer, a business blazer or whatever, and I would watch that hostess or the host, you know, Larry Muzzy, Bobby Ray Carter, or whatever, and I would watch them and I'd go, I would love to do that. I can see myself doing that. Night after night, because I worked in the evenings, during the day, I was trying to sell luxury real estate in one of the hardest times of real estate. And I kept going in there day in and day out in the evening, and I'd see these hosts, and I'd never practiced, but I just thought, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do that. I know I could do that. And then this little voice, you know, that little voice you and I lived with, that little voice that said, you're not good enough. You can't do that. But then I'd come back and I'd go, I can do that. I know I can do that. So I'd never pursued it. And one fine day, I was doing an open house on a Sunday, and my dear friend, bestie, Alice Cleveland came in, and she was a host at the time. You remember the story. She ended up being one of our bridesmaids, and she was the host there. And long story short, she opened the doors with Ed Vaughn in the human resources at the time, and Bob Sarcosta, known as the $1 Million Man, hired me like that. And I was out and on the air in 2 weeks. Now you tell me what is the moral of that story? What you're just saying? Did I affect that?
Oh, absolutely.
Did I manifest that? Did I draw that to myself?
What you think about, you bring about, and that is the ironclad rule. But most people don't live by that rule, because what you can't see, you can't see, you can't touch, you can't hear. We feel it doesn't exist.
Right.
You know, if you really want to make a comparison about that, what still fascinates me when I take my little garage key and I can push the button, and 40 feet to 100 feet, the trunk will open.
Yeah.
There's no wires connected. What's this? You didn't see anything in between? Well, that's just a little tiny thing that does that. What about our brain? Our brain weighs over a pound. All right, and it's got all sorts of dendrite connections, millions and millions and billions of cells that are vibrating, dependent upon the thoughts and feelings and so on. So what would be so impossible about that happening? If somebody 100 years ago would have said that when you do that, they put you in jail or they do a Baker Act on you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's true. It's very true. And there's so many stories in our lives like that. And talking about the TV thing, when I became a certified vision board coach, remember when I did that vision board?
Oh, yeah.
On this vision board, and I think I posted it shamelessly on Facebook because it was a lot of fun, but what I had on there, two big things. I had a picture of an Argentine tango dancer and his partner on the vision board, and I also had right in the center a picture that I actually drew of a TV with the antennas, the old-fashioned antennas and everything, and I put my headshot in there. And I thought, I miss TV. I miss doing what I did, but I don't know that I would want to go back and work those overnights, but I'd like to do something in the community, but I had no idea. And one fine day, John Gaston calls me up, who I did some freelance work with. He's the producer, owner extraordinaire, WeBeam TV, Tampa Bay Multimedia, and he says, hey, what are you doing these days? I got something perfect for you. I go, really? And I thought, well, number one, he's a great guy, he's got a great heart, and he's got all the professional mechanisms, the gear, the cameras, the lights, everything that you need to run a professional TV studio station. And that's what we do here on WeBeamTV.com. So anyway, long story short, here we are. We're doing our prime time, and I'm also hosting the My Chamber TV. And you know what? Had I been programming myself to understand this way of thinking, but we do it automatically. There's been times where I'll manifest a particular handbag or a particular color of a top that I'm looking for, and bingo, there it is. There it is. So there is something to that of what you think about, you bring about. And when I met you, the first time I met you and met your mom and all of that, it's almost like I go backwards on the film of our life. And I think of all these different times where I've thought about this, I've thought about that, and sure enough, it manifests itself. So now we've got a really big goal that we're going to manifest, and that's the legend of Tango Man.
That's right. That's exciting, isn't it?
It is very, very exciting, and we will stay with this till we leave the planet. And Lord willing, we're hoping that that will come to fruition, however it's supposed to be. It may be a manifestation of something that we really never expected, right? Just like I never really expected working for 15 years at the Home Shopping Network at middle age, when most news anchors are retiring at my age. Did I ever think that I would meet someone, second time around, second marriage, my best friend, and have all the, I've often said to people, I've never thought about sending God a mail order in a mail order catalog. Okay, he needs to dance. Bingo. And I'd love it if he's good looking, but I want him to be really good looking in the heart. Bingo. I love the martial arts. Here we go. Seriously, I could not have ordered it better.
You attracted me to you through that target date. In other words, you were targeting what you wanted out of the man. I use it as a target. Mm-hmm. And that's what you got. What you think about, you bring about. Fortunately, we get along good, and there's no such thing as a perfect marriage, but we have as good a marriage as you possibly could have.
That's right.
And that's because we were vibrating at a high rate. Mm-hmm. If you vibrate at a low rate, you're going to attract people that vibrate at that same level.
And I think that over many years, and we've talked about this too, and you've often said, because we've seen friends and family not grow together. Let's talk about that a minute, because you've always said the purpose of a relationship is to grow together, not one grow and the other one stay here. We're talking about maturity and handling your emotions, right?
Absolutely, and it ties in what we've been saying for the last so many minutes we've been here. It's directing those thoughts to pleasant things, to good things. See, there are 4 laws. The law of attraction is the first law. And the law of attraction, it works every day. People don't even have to know they have that. But what they attract, what they think about, they bring about. So the law of attraction can be good or can be bad. So what you tend to look at what you want for pleasure, what attracts you to something that could be good for you, something like if you have the white powder, you know what I mean, sniffing that gives you.
No, I don't.
That gives you a brief pleasure, but that's a dangerous pleasure. Mm-hmm. That ends up in a horrible situation. We don't even want to get into all the things that it does. Mm-mm. But the key thing is what you seek pleasure for is what you draw to yourself. Mm-hmm. And the key thing is to think of things, for example, if you got a thought, like I say, is a negative thought, what you want to do would replace that with a positive feeling. And how you create the feelings are just vibrate at that level that would bring about a change. In other words, a positive change, controlling your emotions, being able to look at your goals and see those goals as already accomplished. Notice, not trying to rely on today, but trying to get yourself in a position where you are thinking exactly what your goals would bring to you and the people around you in a positive way.
Give our audience a little sort of an overview. For example, You know, either whether you're in a personal relationship or a business relationship or whatever, sometimes, and I know we've got viewers out there watching, and even after the show is over, you'll be able to come to webeamtv.com and review the show once again. Hopefully we've sent out some of our secrets to you. And one of the secrets is truly being able to handle your emotions and being able to replace it with something positive. You give me, if you can, at the moment, a little example, because that also may come back to that old phrase about count to 10 first before you lose it, right? So rather than count to 10, give us an example. If someone upsets you or whatever it is, where do you go to that happy place to stir up the love? Because that's
You go
what
right to the
show is.
heart.
Thank
Go
you.
right to the heart.
Thank you.
Because they can measure the electrical vibrations of the heart up to 12 feet away. That's with sophisticated equipment. God knows how far that goes.
Mm-hmm.
It goes to infinity.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an important factor in knowing what encompasses being able to handle all these emotions. You've got to realize that you have the power to do it. The challenge is people, even if they look at themselves and they believe, well, I have high potential. You know, we tell people, you have the potential. There's no limit to the human being's potential. But potential is not as rewarding immediately as power. So I changed the word for potential to power. I have the power. That's a lot more exciting. I have the potential. Potential
is, you got the potential.
Yeah, I
but,
got it there. Do I want to use it?
Right.
Power, it gives you results.
That's
and
right.
I mean power in a positive way. The power in a negative way works too.
Yes,
Because
it
remember, you
does.
got that 10 going down from 1 to 10 this way.
Yes.
1 being slightly negative, 10 being in rage. Where you got the positive 1 being slightly positive, feeling, all the way to euphoria. And that, of course, euphoria, you couldn't hold that level very long because and you couldn't hold rage very long, and your body would really suffer a lot of consequences. Not with the higher level, but you would be exhausted. You would deplete yourself of energy. So you got to know how to handle success.
Balance, right?
Balance.
Alignment.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You got to have that balance. That's why from 1 to 10, if you want to vibrate at a level that's comfortable and it doesn't it doesn't take over the energy, it really gives you energy, is vibrate at about a 3 or 4 or 5. Don't try to get up to number 10. That will come. Just like when you're standing. When I was standing in the middle of the what's the word I want? Madison Square Garden. When I was standing in Madison Square Garden in my imagination, then when you're standing and win that trophy and standing in the ring, the same ring that Muhammad Ali fought in, you have a sense of euphoria. That's a great feeling for the problems, not the problems, but the difficulties you overcome to get to that Madison Square Garden first World Championship bout. You have to really work at it and train. And what do I have to believe to accomplish this? Well, I believe I can. And then once you reach that level and standing there, did I not only stand in there once, but I stood there at 1976, 1977, 1978. 3 years in a row, I ended up in that Madison Square Garden ring. And during the day, there was like 50, 60 different rings. People from all over the world came. So when you get to the boxing ring or the competitive ring, you fought all day long, and you're the best of the best at that time. And that's when you really feel the reward of all these weeks and months of training for that. But the point I was trying to get there is that type of feeling results from little good feelings, little goals.
Little goals where you
goals.
focus on. Now, I want to I don't mean to interrupt you, hon, but what you're saying about the euphoria, if I understood you correctly, because I'm relating to that, the euphoria of what it took for you to get into the ring at Madison Square Garden.
That's a good point.
Not so much the trophy, but what you had to do to accomplish that feeling that had to come over you that you made it this far, then you made it that far. And oh my gosh, oh, you made it here, and you did end up with a trophy. I can just feel that energy.
Yeah, it comes down to it's the journey, not the goal. It's the journey that makes the goal worthwhile. It's what you not get, it's what you become. Once you believe in yourself, once you have a good self-image, that's the hardest thing for people in this day and age to get, because everybody's got a crappy feeling of themselves.
I know.
Because of so many peer pressure, so many constant changes, we were not genetically engineered to handle this kind of stress. Our minds and emotions have to be reprogrammed to reach that state of euphoria, or that good positive state.
Reprogramming, that's a really good word.
You have to rewire yourself.
Rewire yourself for happiness, for health.
Rewire the brain.
For success and there's books out about that too. And neuroplasticity, right? We have several books on neuroplasticity, on rewiring the brain, and we get in this way of thinking that once we're here, we can't go here. But you brought this up about the euphoria, and I think that euphoria stays with you today. At 81 years young, right? You still have that euphoria.
You couldn't have put it in a better way. It made me realize, and not realize, but it made me think about another way of explaining it. It's like everyone should have things that you can get passionate about, and a controlled passion. For example, I watched the Green Bay Packers.
Oh, you got my passion on that one.
I watched them the other night. I love the Packers.
I know.
So by getting into watching them play and knowing how the best of the best are on that playing field, it gives you a sense of feeling good about yourself and about what you've accomplished, if you, of course, have followed the path, so to speak. So that's euphoria. Now, if the Packers would have lost, would I dwell on it? No, I'd say, well, that's unfortunate, because I know they will win eventually, and then I'll get my euphoria when they do win.
That's right.
It's controlling those emotions.
It is, and you really do. I mean, when you go to the Packers bar, you were home or when was it? Saturday? No, when was the game? Was it yesterday?
It was
Monday
Monday
it was
night.
yesterday. Oh my goodness. You were home, and I was sitting there right with him watching the game, because I love the euphoria of seeing they're such a great team. Good energy, good spirit, and all of that. But when you go to the Packers bar, I go online to kind of follow, because I want them to win, because I know, well, he's a cheesehead. He's from Wisconsin, and I want to see them win because he's such a diehard Packer fan. And I can understand what you're talking about, remembering that euphoria when you were in the competitive stages of out there in the martial arts world, and believe me, it wasn't to win a bunch of trophies. And we've talked about all of that in some of our other shows, but I didn't think about this until just now when you were talking about the euphoria and finding something that you're passionate about. And excuse me, as a result of doing the shows here, the chamber shows, I was asked to dance with the local stars. And I thought, you would have thought somebody handed me a bunch of money. And that's not what it was. But I didn't even think twice if I could do it. Something deep inside of me told me you can do this. And because it was for numerous charities here in Pasco County. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to practice my little legs off and all of that. And I did with Arthur Murray Clearwater. They were up in Palm Harbor at the time. And weeks, days, hours. And you know, from being a ballroom dance champion and an owner of 7 franchises, you know what it takes to learn what I had to learn to do all that. And once I did, and coming from that little voice in my head saying you can't, that euphoria still stays with me today. And it was interesting because when I went down on the dance floor a year ago, I was praying to God, please God, let me walk again. I will give up my dancing. And I would have, because I didn't know if I'd walk again with a torn meniscus and ACL. But the good Lord delivers above and beyond, as always, and I'm back on the dance floor. But that euphoria, I believe in my heart, helped me heal, because I was laser beam focused on not overdoing things, making sure I take care of myself. And this man right here, let me tell you, is the best caregiver ever. You poor thing. Oh my God, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't walk. I'm on a walker, for 2.5 weeks. And I think that's where the shock came in, because I kept laughing at myself. But the euphoria of seeing myself dancing again, it took over. And so what you say, what you think about, you bring about, it is so true. Try it sometime. Just try thinking about a goal and make it a small one, right?
We start out with small goals.
Yeah.
You set the big goal, but then have little small intermediate goals, like small goals, intermediate. To give you a little idea, the graduating class of Harvard University did a test with all the graduates. Only 3% of the university had written goals. The other 97% did not have written goals. 20 years later, they came back, the researchers came back, the 3% that had written goals had achieved more wealth than the 97% all put together. And there were several other universities that did the same study and got the same results. So it wasn't just that one study. And it's conclusive. When you write it down, you can put that, after writing it, you can put it in a drawer and never look at it again. But by writing that goal down, and then say 5 to 10 minutes a day, get passionate about that goal, seeing the goal is already done. Not looking at the, oh, when I get that Corvette, if that's what you want, I'll be happy. No, I got the Corvette in my mind. I see myself driving it. That's why I forget the Olympic gal's name. She was an Olympic sprinter. And her coach says, if you want to go for, she tried 2 Olympics, and she got first, she got third and second places, couldn't get a first place. He says, see yourself as already having the goal, not going to the goal, but already having it, what you feel about that. And sure enough, she won the gold medal.
That is just so wild. And I know that you've actually, you did that with someone that you told her to see herself owning her own dance school, didn't you?
Yeah, I've done that several times.
Yeah.
Where I acted the part of a reporter, and I'm interviewing them about how they reach that goal and get that person to talk about themselves, and seeing that they have already made the goal. And so far, almost everyone that I did that with has achieved their goal.
See that? There's a lot of truth. There's so much truth to that. And you know what? Everybody gets caught up and self-absorbed, and that's okay. I mean, everybody's trying to make a living. They're trying to get started with college or finish high school with flying colors or whatever it is. Maybe you're raising a family. A lot of people down here are doing more than one job in order to make ends meet. There's a lot of financial hardship, but there's also a lot of real wonderful goodness. And especially in our communities down here in the Tampa Bay area, there's a whole lot of love. I call it the heartbeat of the Tampa Bay community when I do my chamber TV shows. And I just love them because I've learned so much about the people in the community, much more than before I did these shows. And when I was at HSN, it was like day and night, whether it wasn't training, going to legal training, learning products, and all of that. And you look back over your life and you see, okay, what worked? What didn't? And we have the power to change that. We have the power to change. And as I said on our show notes, I said this show is about the power of love. The power of love can change anything and everything. And when you were in the mountains at Heart Math Institute, you learned the validation and the science behind Heart Math and what it does to change. And when you talk about the however many cells that you were saying that were all vibrating at the same level, the same tone, you can't help but see wonderful things happen.
Those cells vibrate, and they have one purpose, and one purpose only, is to make that goal. Mm-hmm. And if you don't make the goal, then you get a negative feedback, like you're not, in other words, you start getting negative. It's not the fact that you didn't get the goal, but you're not wanting to live up what you have to do to get the goal. Mm-hmm. And the key thing is, when you go to make a goal, is what do I have to believe? Believe that you can, number one. Obviously, believe you can't, there's no point in going for the goal.
Not at all.
Believe that you can. Give you a little example. When I do a seminar, I usually talk about this cliche, so to speak. When you were born, you were the fastest swimmer.
I love this story.
You were the fastest of all little sperm guys. You were the first one to reach the goal. Now, what happens is, when little sperm guys go to the egg, we'll call the egg the queen, there's several that are lining up facing the queen. We use the word facing. They're in the same set as the queen. And then the queen vibrates at a certain level. Then the queen will go out there and the little sperm guys will vibrate at their level. She'll pick the sperm guy that vibrates the same frequency as the queen is vibrating. Then when they hit, it's like an explosion. And that's conception.
There you go. And that's the power of love.
The power
right
of love
there.
starts right then and there.
It does.
And then we screw it up through our teachers, through our parenthood.
Shh. That can happen. That can happen.
I'm not saying all teachers. I'm saying most teachers.
Yeah, I know.
Their
I know what you're
mindset
saying. I know.
is things. They don't look at life other than just these things.
And by the book and this and that and not real life and real love. And, you know, that's the biggest takeaway that we want to send out to everybody that's watching today. Please share our show today. It's not all about us. It's about what we can impart to you for relationships that has worked for us. And believe me, we've been in relationships time and time again. And as I look back over the years, I can see what you're saying about the ability to handle your emotions, whether you're a partner in a relationship or business, whether you're a wife, a husband, whether you're even a child going to school. It's the ability to learn how to handle your emotions on the spot, and that's not easy.
No, it's not.
It's not an easy thing to do. However, it can be done, and it's never too late to make those changes, and it's repetition. It's catching yourself before you lose your temper. It's catching yourself before you say something stupid, because once you say it, it's done and it's gone. Oh, believe me, I pray daily for patience with my husband, with life in general, with all the people that are texting out on the road. Ay, 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 the news, we've cut way back in the news. I mean, turn on politics. I mean, that's enough to really make anybody crazy, right? So you balance, it's finding the happy medium, right? Balance.
Yeah, the problem is a challenge, I should say. That, in fact, that's one thing I tell everybody. Never, ever use the word problem. It's always challenge. That just using that one simple rule can change your life, and sometimes over a long period of time, dramatically.
Well, challenge sounds much easier to solve, challenge or solve or resolve, if you will, rather than saying problem. We got this problem. And just the words, and you've often said many times that words have power. Words are things, and they truly are. I'm going to share one of my big secrets with you. Go look up Chad Helmstetter. Chad Helmstetter, right? What you say when you talk to yourself. Get that book, if it's still in print. Mine is all yellow. It is so old. And the funny thing is that my husband and I, who I call Kelly, I know his name's Dennis Kelly, but if I go through that whole story, you'll really think I've lost my mind. Maybe I have, but he likes to be called Kelly all the time. But he was reading the same books that I was. We were on the same personal growth and development path. Little did we know that we were going to hook up with each other. So the other thing is, in our relationship, we can only talk about our relationship, what has worked for us. We just happen to come together with many things in common, and we continue to grow together. We just continue to grow together.
When one person grows and the other person doesn't, that usually will end up in a problem or challenge, so to speak. And as a result, it's so important for both couples to raise and get that level that matches their partner's level.
Yes.
That's why you can't solve a problem in the same frequency that the problem was created. For example, if you would do something, using you as an example, do something that would really aggravate me, and then I would try to solve that situation
Not in that
right
mindset.
at the moment.
Yeah,
in the mindset,
exactly.
no, that's problem not going to be solved.
Exactly.
That's going to be a problem,
Yes.
not a challenge.
Yes.
So what happens is, when you get into the right frequency, that's when you want to approach the individual, your partner, and discuss it. Like, I need your help with something. I know you didn't mean to do that, but I want us to maintain our friendship and our love without anything hurting that. So that's why I'm bringing that challenge to us to not allow this to happen again. When you do that, it's not making the other person feel they're bad. It's giving they give you then permission to change that challenge.
Yes, and I love that about us. That is a big secret, because I think a lot of relationships, it's a control thing. Well, no matter who's right, no matter who's wrong, but if the other person was really wrong, they know it and you know it, you know, there's just no meeting of the minds. And it's like this. Constantly, if you try to come back and be blameful and all of that crazy stuff, and a lot of it really does take maturity to be able to get to this point.
The one thing human beings want is they want to feel good. They'll do anything they can to feel good.
Yeah, I know.
And that's unfortunate because they don't have a manual on how to feel good.
We weren't born with one, right?
Weren't born with one, exactly. So the key is to remember from the Course in Miracles, you have only two emotions, love and fear. And everything fits in the category of fear or in the category of love. So where do you want to dwell? You go into the category of fear, and that's when all sorts of bad things start happening internally, externally. That's when things happen in your life that can't be explained. Why me, God, type things. You know what I mean?
That's
Job,
so true.
like Job was in the desert. And you know the Bible study about Job. And Job was being pressed upon. His cattle were dying. He had all sorts of physical problems with his family and everything. And he'd sit on his knees, kneel on his knees, and pray to God every day. And why God? Why me? Why am I going through all this? And this voice comes down, because you bug me too much. I think we put a little humor in that.
That's a good one. Well, you know, we only have about 90 seconds to close out our show.
That's
I know.
The fastest hour.
I know. Isn't that crazy? Because we're talking about our favorite thing, love. And our anniversary today, I started pre-posting yesterday because that picture came up of us doing the tango. My husband taught me the tango because he knew that's what my passion was. 2 weeks before the wedding. And that was the result of that. And we've been tangoing ever since. So I just want to tell you how much I love you, and I will marry you again.
Well, how about it? You're glutton for punishment.
See that? And
I love you too, and I'd marry you again.
Well, good. Give me a high five on that one.
No, this one.
Oh, here we go. The fist bumps.
That's the original explosion.
That's
magnified.
There you go. That's my grandson. He loves doing that. Want to thank you guys for joining us and celebrating our 19-year anniversary. And hopefully that you will continue to develop your power of love because you have it inside of you. Think about it. If you want some more exercises, always tune in to Primetime. You never know what kind of new news you can use from the Kellys here. So thanks for joining us. God bless each and every one of you. We'll see you next time. And until then, have a great week. Love one another and know there is that miracle waiting for you.
Hasta la vista.